$5 trillion.
It is a number that is genuinely hard to wrap your head around.
It really is.
It sounds abstract, almost, made up.
I mean, we look at market caps all the time. We talk about the Apples, the Microsofts, the giants. But this feels different. According to the data we have, as of October 29, 2025, NVIDIA became the first company in history to hit that $5 trillion mark.
It's a staggering milestone. To put that in perspective for you listening, that is larger than the GDP of Germany.
Wow.
It's larger than the entire economy of Japan. We're talking about a level of economic gravity that we've literally never seen from a single tech company before.
And that is exactly what we are here to unpack today. Because when you see a number like $5 trillion, it's easy to just think, okay, big tech wins big, AI is huge, so NVIDIA is huge. But the story behind this is not a straight lineup.
Not even close. It is not an overnight success story, despite how it looks in the headlines.
No, it's messy. It involves a lot of near-death experiences, some massive failures, and honestly, it starts in the most unlikely place you can imagine.
It really does. This is a story of a paradigm shift. It's about how the world moved from simple graphics to something they call accelerated computing, which now powers pretty much everything.
From self-driving cars to drug discovery.
Exactly. But before we get to AI supercomputers and trillions of dollars, we have to go back to 1993.
And we have to go to a Denny's.
A classic American setting.
A Denny's on Berryessa Road in East San Jose. So picture it. It's 1993. You've got Grand Slam breakfasts, bottomless coffee, and 3 guys in a booth.
Jensen Huang, Chris Malachowski, and Curtis Prime.
And these weren't just random guys. I mean, they had serious pedigrees. Jensen was coming from LSI Logic and AMD.
And the other two, Chris and Curtis, had deep backgrounds at Sun Microsystems, IBM. These were engineers who really understood the guts of computing.
But here's a thing that stood out to me. In 1993, the entire computing world is obsessed with one thing, the CPU.
The central processing unit.
Right. Intel is king. The PC is a tool for spreadsheets, word processing, maybe some solitaire. But these 3 guys in the diner, they're not talking about spreadsheets.
No. They were obsessed with the visual. They had this really contrarian belief that the future of computing was going to be 3D. They thought the PC would become a multimedia device, not just a glorified typewriter.
Which sounds obvious to us now, right? We live in a world of 4K streaming and immersive video games.
Yeah.
But back then...
Back then, it was a massive gamble. Bordering on delusional, some might have said. In 93, if you wanted lifelike 3D graphics, you needed a workstation from Silicon Graphics.
Yeah, machines that cost tens of thousands of dollars.
Exactly. The idea of bringing that kind of visual power to a regular PC that a teenager could buy, that was pure science fiction.
So, April 1993, they found NVIDIA. The goal is to build a flexible, programmable graphics processor. It sounds like a slam dunk.
On paper, yes. In reality, their first shot was a complete disaster.
Let's talk about the NV1, 1995. Reading about this, it just feels like they tried to do everything at once.
No, it was a classic engineering trap, feature creep. The NV1 wasn't just a graphics card. It was a multimedia PCI card. It did 3D graphics, sure, but it also handled audio. It even had a dedicated port for a Sega Saturn game controller.
They were trying to be the Swiss Army knife of PC entertainment.
And the market looked at it and said, we don't need a corkscrew. We need a knife that actually cuts.
And the issue wasn't just that it did too much. It was how it did it.
That was the death knell. The NV1 was completely proprietary. They bet on a rendering technique using quadrilaterals, basically curved surfaces, while the rest of the industry, led by Microsoft's new DirectX standard, was deciding that triangles were the way to go.
So they built a Betamax player just as the world was switching to VHS.
Precisely. It was ambitious, maybe even elegant, but practically useless. It flopped.
And when we say flop, we don't mean a little dip in the stock price.
Yeah.
We mean catastrophe.
They had to lay off half the staff. It was grim. There was a running joke internally at the time. We're 30 days from bankruptcy.
That is just terrified laughter right there.
It defined the company culture. But this is the crucial moment, the pivot point. When you are 30 days from running out of cash, you can either play it safe or you can double down.
And they doubled down. They made a cultural decision to iterate brutally fast.
Yes. They looked at the NV1, saw their mistake, and completely abandoned the proprietary approach. They decided to align with industry standards, DirectX and OpenGL.
And they just focused on one thing.
Speed. No more audio, no more game ports, just the fastest 3D graphics possible.
And that focus paid off. By 97, they released the Rivia 128, then the Rivia TNT, And suddenly they're getting design wins with Dell, Gateway, Micron.
They survived.
They survived, but they hadn't changed the world yet. They were just a successful component supplier. The real shift happens in 1999.
The year of the GeForce 256.
Exactly. And this is where the terminology itself shifts. This is when NVIDIA actually coins the term GPU.
Okay, let's pause on that because we hear GPU all the time now. But what did that actually mean in 1999? How was it different from just a graphics card? It was a fundamental shift in architecture. See, before the GeForce 256, the main CPU of the computer still had to do a lot of the heavy lifting for graphics.
So calculating the geometry, the lighting, all that stuff.
All of it. The CPU was getting bogged down doing math for the video game, which makes the whole computer slower.
Doubt it.
The GeForce 256 moved all of those operations, geometry, lighting, transform off the CPU and onto the chip itself. It was the first true GPU.
So it freed up the computer's brain to do other things.
Precisely.
Right.
It was a massive jump in performance, and the market rewarded them instantly. They went public that same year at $12 a share. They even won the contract for Microsoft's original Xbox.
So they were the kings of gaming. But this is where it gets really interesting, because if NVIDIA had just stayed a gaming company, we wouldn't be talking about $5 trillion today.
Not at all. We'd be talking about maybe a $50 billion company.
Wow.
The seeds of that massive valuation were sown in the early 2000s almost by accident.
The happy accident. This is my favorite part of the story.
It's fascinating. So NVIDIA starts noticing that it's not just gamers buying their cards. Researchers, physicists, mathematicians, people in oil and gas were buying them too.
Why?
They discovered that GPUs were massively parallel.
Massively parallel. We hear that a lot. Break that down for us. How is that different from what a CPU does?
Okay, think of a standard CPU, like an Intel chip, as a really smart mathematician. Let's call him Einstein.
Okay.
He can solve incredibly complex equations, one after another, very fast, but he has to do them in order.
So he's brilliant, but he's working solo.
Right. Now, a GPU is different. It's not Einstein. It's like an army of 10,000 elementary school students.
I am picturing the chaos.
Individually, they can only do simple math, add, subtract, multiply. But if you have 10,000 simple math problems that all need to be solved at the exact same time, that army of students will crush Einstein every single time.
So if you need to process 1 million pixels on a screen at once,
You want the army of students. Graphics is just a massive parallel math problem. And it turns out so is a lot of science. Simulating weather, folding proteins, calculating physics.
all parallel problems. So Jensen Huang sees these scientists hacking his gaming cards to do math. And instead of shutting it down, he leans in.
He leans in hard. And this is the moment the strategy shifts from gaming to infrastructure. In 2006, 2007, they launched something called CUDA.
CUDA. This is the secret sauce, isn't it?
It is the moat. Think of CUA as a translation book. Before CUA, programming a GPU for math was incredibly difficult. You basically had to trick the card into thinking your math problem was a picture. It was a hack.
So only the most brilliant computer scientists could even try it.
Correct. CUDA changed all that. It let developers write code that looked like standard C programming stuff they already knew, but it would run on the GPU.
So suddenly you didn't have to be a graphics wizard anymore to use this super powerful hardware.
And here's the thing people forget. For years, Wall Street hated this.
Really?
Because it cost a fortune. NVIDIA was spending billions on R&D for this science software, and the market for it was tiny. Investors were saying, stick to gaming, that's where the money is. But Jensen stuck with it.
He was playing the long game.
The very long game. They built libraries, tools, a whole ecosystem around this idea of the GPU as a general-purpose accelerator. And that patience set the stage for the AI explosion.
Connect those dots for us. How do we get from CDO to ChatGPT?
Well, when the deep learning boom started in the 2010s, things like AlexNet, which could identify images, researchers realized they needed massive computational power. A CPU would take months to train a model.
Einstein is too slow.
Einstein is way too slow. They needed the army of students. And guess what? NVIDIA was the only company that had the hardware and the software ready to go.
Because of CDI.
Exactly. Researchers turned to NVIDIA not just because the chips were fast, but because CDA made it practical to actually use them.
It's like they built the highway 10 years before the cars were even invented.
That is a perfect analogy. So by the time ChatGPT and the LLMs exploded in 2022, NVIDIA was the only game in town. Their data center GPUs, the A100 and H100, became the default hardware.
And that brings us to the modern era, the AI factory. I love that term. NVIDIA isn't just selling a chip in a box anymore.
No, and this is key to their defense against competitors. They are selling full stacks. If you're Amazon or Google or Oracle, you're not just buying a processor, you're buying the networking, the software, the reference architectures. You're buying an entire AI factory designed to churn out intelligence.
Which creates a massive lock-in.
Huge lock-in. You can't just swap out one NVIDIA chip for a competitor's. The whole system is integrated. It changes the total cost of ownership math for clients.
Which brings us back to that number, 5 trillion, October 29, 2025.
The scale of demand was unprecedented. Orders for 20 million next-gen chips, a backlog of roughly $500 billion.
A $500 billion backlog. That is $500 billion just in people waiting in line to give you money.
It signals a transition. NVIDIA stopped being just a tech company and became a geopolitical asset.
A geopolitical asset?
That sounds serious.
It is. These chips are now the heart of AI infrastructure for the U.S. and its allies. They're subject to strict export controls, specifically to China. You can't just ship H100s anywhere you want anymore.
It's wild. In the 20th century, nations fought over oil. Now they're maneuvering over compute.
And NVIDIA controls the tap.
So let's talk about the business. You mentioned the flywheel effect. How does that work?
It's a self-reinforcing cycle. The more AI demand, the more GPUs people buy. The more GPUs are out there, the more developers write software using CUDA.
Yeah.
And the more software that's written for CUDA,
The harder it is for anyone to switch to a competitor.
exactly. Because even if a competitor's chip is cheaper, if you have to pay 10 engineers for a year to rewrite your code, it's not worth it. Plus, NVIDIA keeps updating the software so even their older chips, like the A100, stay useful for years.
So they have this incredible lock-in. But it's not just AI chatbots, is it? No, gaming is still a core business with GeForce and ray tracing, but they're also dominant in automotive with self-driving cars. And there's a huge push into what Jensen calls the next industrial revolution.
Robotics and digital twins.
Yes, digital twins, simulating a whole factory in virtual reality before you build it. They're building something called the Omniverse, partnering with companies like Siemens and BMW. You can train robots in a simulation where time moves faster and then download that brain into the real robot.
So if the AI bubble pops, they have this whole industrial layer to fall back on.
That's the bet. That accelerated computing isn't just for writing poems, it's for optimizing logistics, discovering drugs, and running physical factories. They're weaving themselves into the fabric of every industry.
Okay, so we have to play devil's advocate. $5 trillion, massive moat. What could possibly go wrong?
There are definitely risks. The biggest one is, well, is this an AI bubble?
The classic boom and bust.
Right. Companies are spending hundreds of billions on this hardware. But are the applications, the chatbots, the coding assistants actually generating enough revenue to justify that spend? If the ROI isn't there, the orders will eventually stop.
And the competition isn't just sleeping.
Not at all. You have AMD and Intel fighting back, but the bigger threat might come from NVIDIA's own best customers.
The cloud giants.
Exactly. Google has its TPU, Amazon has Trainium, Microsoft has Maya. They're all building their own internal AI chips because they are tired of paying the NVIDIA tax.
That's a tough spot. Your biggest customers are also your future competitors.
Which is exactly why NVIDIA is moving up the stack, selling those turnkey AI factories. You can't just swap out the chip if you're bought into their whole integrated system.
It's a fascinating game of 4D chess.
It really is, and it proves the value of what they've done for 30 years, sitting at that boundary between hardware and software. They didn't just build a fast chip, they built the language that the chip speaks.
So as we wrap this up, what's the big takeaway? From the NV1 flop to a $5 trillion empire.
For me, it's a lesson in betting on the right abstraction. NVIDIA bet that parallel computing, doing lots of simple things at once, was the fundamental way the universe works.
Physics is parallel.
Exactly. They stuck with that bet when it nearly bankrupted them, when Wall Street ignored them, and they were ready when the rest of the world finally caught up.
The ultimate story of preparation meeting opportunity.
It is. And it leaves us with a really provocative question for the future.
How's that?
If NVIDIA is the Intel of the AI age, the infrastructure layer, then who are the companies that will be the Microsoft or Google built on top of it?
The application layer.
Right. We're obsessed with the hardware right now because it's new and scarce, but the real value usually moves up to the software and solutions. We might be underestimating how this is going to change industries that have nothing to do with tech.
Like what?
Biology, manufacturing, material science. We're just scratching the surface of what happens when you apply this much compute to physical problems. The next trillion-dollar company might not be a software company at all.
It could be a drug discovery company.
A company that cures cancer or reverses aging, built on NVIDIA's stack.
Now, that is something to think about. From a diner booth to rewriting the code of life itself.
It's been quite a journey.
Well, there you have it. The story of NVIDIA. If you enjoyed this deep dive, make sure to follow the show. We'd love to hear your thoughts. Are we in a bubble, or is this just the beginning?
And maybe let us know if you own a leather jacket.
Had to get one leather jacket joke in there. Thanks for listening, everyone. We'll see you next time.